As everybody knows by now, one of the most anticipated motorcycles for the 2019 model year was released, and that is the new Indian FTR1200. Now, there have been a lot of videos that have been done about this bike, going over all the specs and everything. But what I thought was really interesting is that a few months back I was reading a post on one of the Indian forums, and there was a guy that was saying he has a friend who works for Polaris, and Polaris says that they are going right after Ducati and BMW. And of course you read these things with a grain of salt. But after seeing this new FTR1200, I think he was probably right. So when you look at this new FTR1200, it is very hard not to see the similarities between the Ducati Monster 1200, right? Again, both sport bikes, both naked sport bikes, both use the trellis frame, and they even have similar exhaust setups. Now, I know there's a few people that will be upset about this, that the new Indian shares some design characteristics with the Ducati, but for me, I think they're both cool bikes, right? I really like the trellis frames that were used on the Ducatis, and I think it looks equally as good on this Indian. Along with sharing some design characteristics, both the FTR1200S, the one with all of the bells and whistles, right, traction control, stability control, cornering, ABS, all of the things you would expect to find in a bike in this category, well, it is priced exactly the same at $15,000 as the Ducati Monster 1200. Now, there is a lower priced FTR1200, right, that doesn't come with all of the traction control and all of those kinds of bells and whistles, right, and that starts out at about $13,000. But for me, if you're going to spend this kind of money on this kind of bike, you're going to go with the S. Now, Ducati fans are going to be quick to point out that the Ducati is lighter than the Indian. It has more horsepower. 120 is what the Indian claims to put out, and the Ducati puts out 147 horsepower, right? So you're going to get more horsepower and more torque with the Ducati, right? And also you get a bigger fuel tank on the Ducati. You get an extra gallon, right? The FTR only has a 3.5 gallon tank, where the Monster comes with a 4.5 gallon tank. Right? So both of these bikes and both of these brands have those great classic motorcycle names behind them, right? Ducati, the European, the Italian brand, and Indian, the US made brand. Right, so now at least you do have a choice in American motorcycles. If you're looking for a sport bike, right, a naked sport bike, you now have one to choose from. So which one are you going to go with? Well, it's just going to depend upon what you're looking for, right? If you really want the horsepower, the performance, you're probably going to go with the Ducati, right? But if you want that classic American brand and American name, well, now you have the choice of going with the Indian. Now, the specifications, the looks, and the price point of these bikes are not the only thing I think that Indian has borrowed from Ducati. Right, Ducati also has this extremely popular and successful scrambler line, right? And with that line, Ducati has come out with a wide variety of different models, different applications that people can buy to make the scramblers their own, and also get the bike that fits their particular riding style. Well, Indian has borrowed, I think, a page from that playbook. So what Indian has decided to do, rather than come out with 4 different models of this FTR1200, they've decided to create some accessory packages that you as a buyer can get and then customize your FTR1200 to fit your riding style and your personal preferences. Those accessory packages include rally, sport, tracker, or a touring package. Now, while this approach by Indian is slightly different in that they have these accessory packages, right, they are very similar to what Ducati has been doing over the years with the Scrambler. Right? For 2019, for example, the Ducati Scrambler will come in the Icon package, right, the Desert Sled, which is full off-road version of the bike, right? They have a cafe racer and they have something they call the full throttle. Again, that's a more sport-oriented model. Again, these things are kind of very similar to what Indian is doing with the accessory packages. Now, before you yell at me, I know that these are two different bikes. We have a 1200 versus an 800, right? However, right, the marketing strategy to me seems to be very similar, right? They want to attract a wider range of people that will be interested in different styles of this bike. Indian's approach is just to offer these accessory packages rather than different models of the bike, like Ducati has been doing. And Ducati has been extremely successful with this approach. I believe the Scrambler now is about 25% of their overall sales every year, and that is the highest selling percent of any of their model bikes. We all know that Ducatis are pretty expensive, right? They're a premium brand, but they've been able to keep the Scrambler down to that $10,000 to $12,000 price range for all of these different models that they're offering. Right? Again, and I think that's a good approach. It appeals to a younger rider that doesn't have all of the free cash that an older rider is going to have. So this brings us to the one issue that I think Indian is going to have here, and that is price. Right? You've already got a bike that is up there in the $15,000 price range. Right? So you're going to be excluding a lot of younger buyers, right, from looking at this bike. Also, now you're going to have these accessory packages that you are going to have to purchase on top of that $15,000 price range. And all of these packages run around $3,000 to $5,000. Right? So that's a good chunk of change. You're already paying $15,000, and now if you wanted to go with the full off-road package, then you're looking at another $5,000 to replace wheels, put wire rims and so forth on it. So again, that's going to be a big chunk of change for, again, most younger buyers, if that's who you're going to market this to. Let me take a minute here to talk about something that I think Ducati has done extremely well with this Scrambler line, and that is appeal to those younger riders. They seem to understand what the younger generations are looking for, right? Which is completely different than what my generation was looking for in buying a motorcycle. Right, so if you watch the Ducati ads and stuff, they barely ever mention the motorcycle or its features at all. Pretty much all of it is geared towards the experience that you can have with these motorcycles, rather than talking about the motorcycle itself, right? Which I think is brilliant, right? And it has worked extremely well for them. Now, in contrast, if you look at what Indian is doing with this FTR1200, all of the videos basically are talking about all of the features of this bike, right? And they do have a lot of cool features, but that's a very analytical, very, male, old school approach to it. Something that we keep doing over and over and over again, and yet the American manufacturers continue to have trouble selling their models over the last few years. So let me sum this up, and then you guys can give me your comments down below on this new Indian FTR1200. So first of all, this bike is basically the bike that myself as a Victory owner has been asking Polaris to build, right, since they did that 156 project up Pikes Peak, right? And of course we know what happened to Victory. They went away. But now they are at least building this bike and getting into the sport bike segment, and hopefully other segments as well, like adventure touring. I would love to see them do that. Now, of course, we have had American manufacturers, Buell and Harley-Davidson, get into the sport bike segment in the past. And of course, there have been others as well. But Harley-Davidson, let's face it, did not know what to do with Buell. In particular, they didn't know how to fit Buell into the Harley-Davidson culture, right? At the dealerships primarily. The dealers just didn't know what to do and didn't know how to relate to people who wanted to ride sport bikes. Now hopefully here with Indian we have a new opportunity, right, to branch out and expand the segments that an American manufacturer can get into, right? Indian, being basically a new company. I know they claim to have the 115 plus year heritage, but in reality they've only been around for just a few years now, right? And a lot of their dealers are already selling other brands of bikes, right? It's not just an Indian only facility. Typically they're selling like Yamaha that my dealer sells, or maybe Kawasaki or something else on their floor, as well as Indian. So I think it's going to be an easier mesh for them, right, when they start selling sport bikes and hopefully adventure bikes and other kinds of bikes as well. I also like the fact that Indian wants to take on the likes of Ducati. Right? I mean, that's great. It's good competition, right? It's good for the manufacturers. It pushes them to be better, and it's better for we motorcyclists because we get better products and a wider variety of products, right? So this head-to-head competition that seems to be going on now, where they're stealing each other's ideas, well, again, to me, that's a good thing, and I look forward to seeing what happens here in the future. So thanks for watching, and again, thank you for supporting this channel in whatever way that you choose to do it, right? There's links in the description of this video giving you several different options, be it buy t-shirts or sweatshirts, buy my ebook, or becoming a Slab Insider, where you can get additional content. All right, so thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it. Ride safe.